Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. As always, wherever in the world you're listening to us from, whatever platform you guys are listening to us on, thank you guys so much for the support, messages, emails, tweets, all the things that you've sent the show's way. Keep all that coming, and I'm really excited to be bringing this one to you today because, as I was talking about with my guest before we started, I'm not sure how many of you listening are even aware that this particular topic exists or what this is really all about. I know that, when most of us think about college basketball, we think of the NCAA, but we're going to talk about a different form, a different organization form, a different association of collegiate sports, and that's the National Christian College Athletic Association. And what I really am kind of excited to talk about with that is kind of unearth and learn a little bit about this association and what basketball looks like, what the level of basketball play is like. As my guest will talk about what they personally enjoy about being in that environment, and also, maybe for some of you listening who are coaches, maybe this type of collegiate association might be what the best fit is for your players, and giving you as a listener some information about that as well to maybe expose you to an option that you didn't know existed is also really exciting. So we're going to dive right into it here with the head coach at Arlington Baptist on the women's basketball side. Very happy to be joined today by Coach Skye Roach. Coach, really appreciate you being able to come on and spend some time talking to us today. How are things going?
Things are going well. Yes, I'm very excited to come on today and give you a little bit more information about this level of basketball that I feel like is a little bit overlooked sometimes. So for sure, I'm super excited.
Awesome. Coach, let's start with your basketball journey. I know there was a lot of you playing in your basketball journey. Your basketball journey had a lot of playing experience involved in it. So talk about where your basketball journey took you as a player, and then how did you end up in the coaching side, and how did you end up at Arlington Baptist?
Right, for sure. So, I first picked up a basketball in seventh grade whenever I was 12 years old. And, at the time I kind of felt like I was a little behind because, my friends and, the people on my team had been playing, since they were, like in fifth grade. So, looking back on it, I guess I wasn't that far behind as I thought I was, but that's how I felt, picking a basketball up in seventh grade. But yeah, I mean, I always say that, I can't believe that picking up that basketball whenever I was 12 years old led me to where I am today. I mean, if I hadn't had done that, I wouldn't even, be on the podcast with you today right now.
Right.
So, but yeah, like I said, I started playing whenever I was 12 years old and kind of fell in love with it from there. And then obviously, like as I started getting into high school, the desire to play college basketball came about. And then I also kind of knew, in high school that I wanted to be a coach, at a pretty young age, like not too far long after I started playing, because I had a coach, like one of my very first coaches. His name was Coach Joseph Baldridge, in a coach out of Houston. And he told me one day, that he became a coach because he loved basketball so much that he wanted to stay, just engulfed in the sport even after he was done playing. And so, me hearing that as a 12-year-old, I was like, that sounds pretty good. So that kind of stuck with me, throughout high school. And then straight out of high school, I graduated from Tomball High School, and here in the Houston area, like just outside of Houston. I went the JUCO route. I went to Clarendon Junior College and played there for 2 years. And then in 2017, I came to Arlington Baptist University and played my junior and senior year of college there. And I'm still here. I guess whenever I got there in 2017, I didn't look back, and so now whenever I was done playing, I spent about 3.5 years as an assistant, and now I'm very blessed and fortunate to be the head coach of the program. So very, very cool journey. Like I said, definitely didn't expect picking up that basketball in seventh grade to lead me where I am today.
Yeah, and it's just hearing it, just so cool how it seems like it seamlessly transitioned right from playing stopped to coaching began. It was like right away
Right, right.
from one to the other. And I know that one of the things that you wanted to talk about, and I wanted to give you a platform to talk about, was your experience kind of navigating through the college recruitment experience, and I know that it is a whirlwind, and I know that it can be crazy, and for you, I know going through it without maybe having a lot of background or having a lot of people that you can necessarily like rely on. I wanted to ask you about what do you know now about the recruiting experience that maybe you wish that you knew back when you were being recruited and going through it as a player yourself.
Yeah, I love to talk about this just because whenever I was going through it, I didn't have much guidance. And it
Hmm.
wasn't, because like I was necessarily being neglected, but I mean, both of my parents, neither of them, completed college. I was the first college grad from my family.
Yeah.
And nobody in my family, I don't think like, ever, had even played sports in college. So it was just something that, my family, and I personally just were completely unfamiliar with. I didn't have a ton of help from my high school coach, so it was something that I quite literally navigated by myself whenever I was 17 years old. So um I was not heavily recruited, going into my senior year. And I remember, being in high school literally, during my senior year and, just, having that overwhelming thought of, like what was going to be next for me. I had no idea. And I knew that I wanted to play collegiately. Obviously that was my goal, but I didn't necessarily know how that was going to happen. So I didn't have any offers, throughout my whole senior year. And I don't want to say nowadays, like I'm so old, I'm 26, but nowadays, I feel like the recruiting is that platform is just kind of more known, I guess, than it was then, especially, like with Twitter, blowing up
Hmm.
so much with recruiting and like Field Level is an app that I literally use every day. I don't even know if Field Level was, a thing back then, but I know for sure that recruiting on Twitter was not as big as it was in 2015 as it is now.
Hmm.
um, so yeah, literally I took it upon myself after the my senior year was or my senior season was already over during spring break. So it's funny right now because we were talking earlier about how we're on spring break, but I took spring break my senior year to literally put all of my highlights together on Windows Movie Maker. And I put it on YouTube and
Wow.
it's still on YouTube to this day. It
Awesome. So
actually
it still
it
lives.
has a few thousand views. I'm not
Oh,
trying to, but
okay.
it has a few thousand views. But yeah, my high school senior year highlights are on YouTube right now, and I took that link and I started sending it out to just any college coach that I could. And I was realistic too about my level, and that's something that I think is important to note because I see there is a level of college basketball for every kid that wants to play college
Hmm.
basketball. Like I sincerely believe that. But a lot of times I see, kids trying to reach out to, like South Carolina and, like UConn and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's probably not, the right level for you. But, um, but anyway, so I actually the majority of the emails that I sent out were to junior college coaches. And so I ended up getting a few looks and a few offers that way. And ultimately, I decided to go with Clarendon and I spent 2 years there. But yeah, I mean, from that experience and knowing what I know now, for one, it's never too late. Because I've heard, a few recruits tell me before that they have like they committed to a school and they ended up decommitting because they felt
Hmm.
like they were being rushed or that they were running out of time. And obviously, I mean, whenever you get into the fall, obviously, and colleges have already started their semester, then yeah, that's probably too late. But I mean, I've literally had girls that have come in, like not that this is a great thing, but like 2 weeks, before the semester started and decided that they wanted to commit and get everything done. And so, for people for young recruits in high school to feel like, they're being rushed and they're, quote unquote running out of time right now, is, way far from the truth. Like I said, I mean, I literally I didn't get any offers at all until, like spring break in 2015. So that's definitely one thing that I've learned. And then another thing that I've learned is that, sometimes I also kind of feel like it's, kind of a misconception that, you're always going to be found. Like, I mean,
Mm,
like I said, I was a pretty good player in high school. I wasn't anything, like super standoutish. I wasn't averaging 20 points a game, but I knew that I was still good enough to play college basketball, but I didn't necessarily have all of the, exposure available to me. I didn't
right,
even,
right.
I think that I missed out on like I think my junior year summer maybe of AAU, either sophomore or junior year, so I missed some exposure there. So sometimes you have to take it upon yourself. You can't expect, coaches to find you. You can't expect, basically like things to be done for you. And I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with, the time that you put into the game anyway. You can't expect things to be done for you. So sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands and literally, put together your own film and get your own name out there, and stuff like that. So yeah, I am glad though that I did go through that recruiting process, by myself, where I kind of didn't know what to do, because like I said, this is one thing that I love to talk about, just because um I know what it's like, to feel like, you don't really have much guidance through that. So I like, for, just any young athlete that I come across, I always try to just sprinkle a little bit of that, advice to them, just so, because I would have loved somebody to do that for me whenever I was going through it. So yeah, that's kind of how it worked for me. And like I said, that's why I love to just kind of help and give any kind of advice that I can to anybody about that recruiting process, for sure.
And it's fun now because of your experience, like as a coach, like you can definitely attest to that, right? Where where it's never like, necessarily maybe even like too late for players I'm sure as you've talked about and we talked about before we start recording, right? About players reaching out to you and taking initiative and taking control over their own recruiting situation. So
Right.
it's pretty fun to hear you talk about that advice that you wish that you had known then. It's like also that the fact that you now see players kind of like are doing that. You're like, man, like this player's like taking this initiative and reaching out to me and doing all
Right.
these and has all this. Like this is great that players are doing that. And I think it's really cool to as a coach that you can kind of speak on the fact that like that advice and those recommendations that you would give players are the things that are current players are probably doing right now for you. That you're seeing and they're like, oh yeah, you're taking that initiative now. I have maybe a little bit more interest in you, or I'm really going to take a look at you, whereas maybe I would have never found you if you didn't reach out to me first.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
That's awesome. And I wanted to ask you with that too is about I think for a lot of players who are being recruited, one of the things that they can have happen is they get really overwhelmed with all of like potentially the options or the offers or the things that they have available to them, and they kind of get that paralysis of not knowing what to decide or how do I know that this decision I'm going to make is going to be the best one? Or like, what if there's, this better school? How do I know if this one that I want to commit to is going to be the best one? How did you kind of personally know in your experience when you found the colleges that you were going to play at that this is where I want to be and I'm at at ease and I'm comfortable with that decision?
Right. So, I remember I was stuck between two colleges, and the one actually that I didn't end up going to, whenever they first kind of reached out to me, for whatever reason in my head, like I was dead set. I was like, oh, this is for sure, where I'm gonna go. Like I'm gonna visit both of these schools, but I'm pretty sure that that's where I'm gonna be next year. And so I went on a visit, and of course this is also, like another piece of advice, which is kind of, like in a way obvious, go on visits and go,
Yeah.
experience the campus and the coach, specifically yourself. Um, but I did that. I went to both, and I loved both. I genuinely did. I think both of the coaches that, were offering me, that I think they're both great coaches, and they've gone on to continue to do great things like to this day. Um, but whenever I went to Clarendon, which is, for a little bit of context, is in the middle of nowhere, like middle of absolutely nowhere, like only a few stoplights in the town, no McDonald's, no Walmart, like literally in the middle of nowhere. But I went to that little school in that little town, and um, I just kind of knew whenever I was there, and I knew whenever I was, talking to the coach, that this was definitely somebody that I wanted to play for. And a lot of times it is kind of, intuition. It's a very broad statement to make, but when you know. Um, but that's kind of another piece of advice that I tried to tell these girls. Like I was talking to a recruit the other day, and she had just recently, like decommitted from another school and wanted to reopen her recruiting process. And she was telling me herself, about like all of the thoughts, just the reservations that she was having about the school that she had previously committed to. And I was telling her, kind of the same thing that they tell you whenever like you're shopping and you see, like some kind of shirt, some kind of outfit in the store. And the thing that you're supposed to think, right, is if you don't love it whenever you're there in the store and you're like looking at it, then you're probably going to end up not wearing it if you buy it. It's like the
Right.
same kind of concept. If you go there and you're something in your gut, just feels off, and then something in your gut feels on about another place or another coach, what have you, then that's just, kind of how you know. And then of course, sometimes you get there and, maybe your intuition was wrong, or, maybe you ignored, that gut feeling that you have, and, you end up transferring. But no, I definitely think that just, like really, really listening to your gut is a big part in that. And, funny enough, me going to Clarendon actually didn't even work out the way that I thought it would,
Hmm.
because the coach that recruited me there actually, she took another job like the
Oh
the
yeah.
third day that I was there.
Oh wow.
Um, and it was a great job, a job at a D1 school. Like she absolutely should have done it, and she's great. Like I said, I still talk to her to this day. And I never even really played for her. But
Yeah.
even I still would never have traded my, experience at Clarendon for anything. And like I just said, I mean, I still went there and met her for a reason, because she's still a mentor of mine today. So it's funny because you can't see everything, obviously, like you can't see the whole picture as you're, in that moment. But yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, even though, like I said, going to Clarendon didn't go exactly the way that I thought it would, I'm really glad that I trusted my gut, and I knew that was where I was supposed to be. And I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, I really like that advice though, that trusting that intuition, go on that visit and like you just get that feeling. It's almost like I think of it as like you kind of mentioned about the clothes shopping, right? Or just something that like you just know, like I like this or I don't kind of like this sort of thing. And
Right.
and if it fits, definitely take those visits. I completely agree. Make sure you go to those visits. And
Yes.
I tell my players who are fortunate enough to get those, like go on those visits, ask all the questions you can, like really take everything in,
Absolutely.
because this is supposed to be their best impression, right? This is supposed to be the best, that you're supposed to feel, and they're supposed to make you feel at ease and make you feel welcome and make you feel that you belong there. And I tell my players, if you don't get that feeling at all, like that feeling's probably not gonna come, later on. Like if you
Right.
feel it,
Right.
you're gonna feel it. If you don't, you probably aren't, sort of thing. So no, that's great. Let me ask you now, as we kind of shift talking about the NCCAA and what that experience is like. And now I know that for you, you can't speak for every single school that's in the National Christian College Athletic Association. However, as somebody who's been around it and has as much varied experience as you do, I wanted to kind of ask you in general terms, how would you describe kind of the college experience that an athlete who would go to one of these schools might be able to expect? Well, kind of paint us a picture as to what they might be expecting if they were to kind of be playing or go into that sort of situation.
Right. So, well, to start, I think it's important to note. So there's an NCCAA Division 1 and Division 2. So, we Arlington Baptist University is Division 2, and the Division 2 level kind of works like the NCAA Division 3. So, we don't give athletic scholarships,
Hmm.
and then NCCAA Division 1, you can give athletic scholarships at that level.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to kind of explain that because what happens a lot at the NCCAA NCAA Division I level, is what you'll see is there's a lot of schools at that level that are actually dually affiliated. So there's a bunch of NAIA programs and NAIA schools that are affiliated with both the NAIA and the NCCAA. For example, Mid-America Christian University in Oklahoma is one that is in the NAIA and also dually affiliated with the NCCAA. Now, the same way in at the Division II level, at our level, you also have NCAA Division III schools that are dually affiliated with the NCCAA Division II. I know that that's a lot of letters and C's and A's, so I hope that that kind of made sense. But yeah, I say that to say, like it varies obviously from school to school. There's some NAIA schools that and this is something that I also like to talk about because
Mhm.
I find it a huge benefit to to be playing at like a quote unquote a smaller level, just because you can go to an NAIA school and you know compete nationally, potentially like on both levels. So like for example, I don't know about like Mid America's like ranking in the NAIA, but I do know for a fact that they're in the top 10 of the NCCAA. So they
Okay.
have that opportunity to possibly qualify for both tournaments. Now, what happens usually, the NAIA is much bigger than the NCCAA. So a lot of times, if a school qualifies for the NAIA tournament, then they won't go to the NCCAA tournament.
Right, right.
However, if something happens, and they can't, they don't qualify for the NAIA tournament, they can still go and have an opportunity to win, a ring, a national championship at, the NCCAA. So the same thing, happens at the D2 level, of course. Actually this year the tournament is actually going on. It'll start on Thursday, I believe, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the host school, I believe, is Crown College, who is an NCAA Division III school that is dually affiliated with the NCCAA. And so they're hosting the NCCAA tournament, and they're in it. I think I want to say that they're the 7 seed, the 7 or 6 seed. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing. It's kind of a confusing dynamic. Maybe I'm just used to it. So I hope that I'm explaining it well enough. But yeah, no, I love that. Like I said, I think it's awesome because again, it's just there's so many different levels of college basketball out there. And obviously I have personal experience with the NCCAA, and it's an awesome experience. I always love to give my experience as a player. And it's really cool, to just kind of have your own version of March Madness. I mean, it is still, March Madness, of course, but
Hmm.
it's super, super exciting. It's still very competitive, and there's still, upsets that happen. It's
Yeah.
all, like the same kind of aspects that, you see on TV, and stuff like that. But it's given to us, at a much smaller, like on a much smaller platform. But I mean, crazy stuff can still happen, and a ton of fun, can still happen. And of course, from a student athlete perspective, it's awesome, to get that feeling, to go to a national tournament, and even just to compete at a national level. That's something that you don't get everywhere. I did not get that whenever I went to Clarendon. Now, Clarendon's much better now than they are whenever I was there, or than they were
Okay.
whenever I was there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even a thought in my mind, competing nationally whenever I was there. And then whenever I came to Arlington Baptist University and I, played at an NCCAA school, it quickly became a reality. So
Hmm.
it's definitely something, like I said, that's super exciting to be a part of.
So with that, I wanted to ask about the I don't know if there's a more tactful way to ask this, but I'll do my best to ask it about the um religious component, the religious element that makes its way in there, because these are all universities and colleges, right, that are religious in nature. They have a religious
Yes.
foundation to them. So I'm curious for the athletes themselves, their level of commitment to a particular religious denomination if they're going to go to one of these schools? Is that something that has an impact on the types of schools that they might want to go to, or is it a situation where they're going to go and have to take certain classes on certain religions, but they don't have to necessarily be practicing a particular denomination? How does that kind of factor into their experience?
Yeah. So, obviously, yeah, pretty much everybody, well, actually, I'm pretty sure everybody in the NCCAA is a member, they are a faith-based
Hmm.
institution. Obviously, National Christian College Athletic Association. So yes, I mean, it does play a big part. And, to be honest with you, that's something that I loved being a part of whenever I was at Arlington Baptist. Um, you know, I wanted that growth. I wanted to grow in my faith. And so yeah, we do like Arlington Baptist specifically, and obviously I can't really speak for other schools, but I'm sure that it is similar at other schools that are affiliated with the NCCAA. Each of our majors does have, a certain number of Bible courses that is required. Now, it varies across the different courses. Like for example, we have business and we also have ministry. Obviously, a ministry major is going to be taking a lot more, um, you know, ministry courses, Bible
Hmm.
courses than a business major would. Whenever you're majoring in business, you still have to take, obviously like, your business math and whatever else. I didn't major in business. So whatever, whatever other business courses, are involved in that, but there are still Bible courses that are required. Um, Now with us, specifically at ABU, we do have chapel twice a week. And of course, we encourage our girls to, or well, our students in general to find a home church, and go to church every Sunday. And, a lot of times that kind of scares people at first, like, I mean, I've
Does
had
it?
recruits that come in and not necessarily it scares them in the sense like they're opposed to it. Like that's not what they want. Because
Hmm.
but I'll have, some girls that will say, well, oh, well, I haven't been to church in a long time. And, I believe, but I haven't been to church in a long time. And, I don't always, read my Bible every day. And my answer to them always is like, I want you here 10 times more, like I want you to be exposed to that. I want you to be in a Christ-centered environment. If you're willing to open your heart, and that's something that you want to grow in and learn more about, then yeah, I mean, I want you 10 times more than I already did. And so um again, my personal experience, um I loved playing at ABU. Obviously, I mean, we won a ton, my junior
That's
and
nice
senior
too.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, my junior and senior year were our fourth and fifth consecutive national championships. And obviously all of that is great, but um that off the court growth is something that was by far the most valuable thing in my experience there. And so that's what I want to continue in my coaching now. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we get girls sometimes where that kind of makes them a little bit nervous. But whenever they get here, obviously it's an adjustment. And I always compare my experience here to my experience in my JUCO. Two completely different worlds. Two
Yeah.
completely different worlds. But both of them, again, I don't regret at all. I loved it. I loved my JUCO, and I loved, coming to ABU and playing in the NCCAA.
No, that's really cool to hear, and I think that that's something that is maybe a bit of a misconception that some recruits or some players who might be looking at one of these institutions might be worried about is right. They might have they might have a religious foundation, but they might have that concern of like, oh, like you said, I don't go to church all the time, or maybe I haven't been
Right.
as studious or as dutiful to my religious duties, but like I want to be a part of this. Am I still like welcome here, sort of thing? And so to hear that, hear you
Yes.
talk about like yes, like yes, absolutely, sort of thing, using it as like a place of growth and a place as like a way to have that foundation that you mentioned and then continue to build off of that. I think that's really reassuring, and hopefully for some coaches listening who might have players who are interested, like yeah, like it's okay. It's okay if maybe they're
Yeah.
not as studious 24/7. Like if they have that desire, right, that desire for that growth, as you kind of mentioned, that desire to have
Yes.
that religion as their foundation, like that's who you're looking for, and that's who you really want to make sure that you bring in if they want to have that sort of college experience.
Yes, 100%.
That's all. So talk about the caliber of play at this level for coaches who may not know about it. Now, they may have a little bit of familiarity, may have NAIA or D3, but talk about in your experience, what type of athletes do you kind of find yourself recruiting that fit into the system that you run and fit into that caliber? How would you describe the level of play?
It's definitely still a very high level of play.
Hmm.
That's something too that I like to touch on just because,
Sure.
I feel like sometimes since, people haven't heard of the NCCAA, I don't know what they expect, but in my experience, it's like they haven't really expected a lot. Somebody that has never heard of the NCCAA, thinks that it's not a high level of basketball. First of all, any level of college basketball is a higher level of college of basketball. I mean, it just is. And so, with the NCCAA, I mean, you can have all different types of levels of players. I mean, there's players that have gone on to play, professionally. And like for example, just a little bit of ABU history.
Okay.
A few years ago, like even I mean before I was there, we actually had two NCAA Division I transfers from the University of Texas at Arlington. So that's like right down the street from us. That's like 15 minutes probably down the street from us. And they didn't get a ton of playing time at UTA. And I don't even really know the full story about how exactly they ended up at Arlington Baptist, but they did. And one of them was the National Player of the Year at our level,
Oh,
and the
wow.
other one was a second team All American um, at our level. So, and then another year, like a couple years after that, we actually had two Division II transfers from Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas. So, and again, one of them was a first team All American, another one was a second team All American. And, like I said, that's, just kind of speaking from ABU's experience, but that kind of happens like across the NCCAA. Is like, you'll have those players that they come in and they're coming from a quote unquote higher level, a more competitive level of college basketball, or coming from an NCAA school, and they come here and they either do really really well, and they prosper, and then there's also some that are kind of just like a role player on the team. So like I said, it's a super super high level, a very competitive level of college basketball. um I would just like, just kind of going by our schedule this year. We had a few NAIAs on the schedule, and we also in our first semester before we got into like our region play. And we also had a few NCAA Division III schools on our schedule. With our NAIA schools, we play them pretty close. Like with, for example, Texas College and Tyler, we split with them this year. So like we lost by I think 5 in our very first game of the season there, and then we got them back at home. Um,
Hmm.
with we played I think three Division III schools this year, and beat two out of those three. So that's kind of the level that I kind of compare us to, is like the NCAA Division III and the NAIA type of level. Like that's kind of the level that we compete well at, I would say. And especially with us being in the Dallas Fort Worth area, that's like all that's around there. There's
Yeah,
JUCOs,
yeah.
there's D3, there's
Tons.
NAIA schools. So it leads to us having, kind of a tougher schedule, but we compete. I mean, those are games, that I put on the schedule that I expect to win. So that's like I say, a comparable, just kind of
Hmm.
like competition level that I would say. Um, as far as like the kind of athlete that I look to fit into
Hmm.
our system specifically, we play very fast. So
Okay.
it's a super fun way to play. We're getting up, pressing full court pretty much the entire game. We're basically trying to turn our defense into offense and score in transition, and put up a lot of points that way. So I typically go for, like faster players, and I'm always looking for a good defender. Like if you can play defense and you can hit a layup, you can probably, be successful here. And so that's like the main thing that I look for. And it does kind of lead to us being a bit undersized, obviously, because it's typically, the little faster guards that, can play that fast, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But like, I think the tallest player on my team this year was like maybe 5'9" in her shoes. And then the rest, like everybody else was like 5'7", 5'6", like around that average height. But yeah, I mean, we run people out the gym. Like that's kind of how we've always done it. That's how we've always played. Even whenever I was playing here, that's what's put the banners on the wall. And yeah, it's fun. You got to be in shape, but by the time that we got the season going, my girls hated whenever I was like, all right, let's pull back a little bit. We're like up by 30 or something, and I'm like begging them to come out of the press, and they just forget. They're like still
Yeah, they're still
turning
going after
around
it.
and yeah, they're still trying to pick up at 90 feet away from the basket, and I'm like, come, y'all get back. But no, that's definitely like the two main things that I look for is like, can you keep up with us and can you defend?
So when you're on the recruiting and when you're looking for players, what do you, knowing that it's so competitive and knowing that there's so many different colleges out there and there's so many people that are looking to find players and looking to find athletes, when you're looking to recruit a player, when you find a player that you think works really well for your system and the way that you play, and also maybe would be a good fit. What is your kind of I guess pitch, for a lack of a better term? What do you kind of sell them on as something that they're going to get in your program that maybe is unique or specific to you and the experience that you could maybe provide that player?
The biggest thing, because I whenever I'm talking to a recruit, I kind of think of, like what I would be looking for,
Hmm.
if I was a player. And I didn't even know about Arlington Baptist University whenever I was in high school. Like those emails that I was talking about earlier that I sent out, I did not send one to ABU because I had never even heard of it,
Yeah.
because we're, it's a small school. But anyway, um, the biggest thing that I kind of pitch, I guess, is the fact that we compete at a national level, and you don't get to do that everywhere. I kind of touched on it earlier. um I was at Clarendon, and at the time, like I said, Coach James, my former coach, he's doing a great job over there. They compete nationally now, but back then that's not how it was. But my freshman year, I think we won 5 games, and my sophomore year, I think we also won 5 games, and we were bottom of the conference. So again, like I went to Clarendon, and really my only goal in mind was I wanted to play college basketball. Like
Yeah.
that was my really only thought, and so going from that, like I said, I kind of touched on it earlier. Playing at a national level, let alone winning a national championship, was not even a thought in my mind whenever I
Hmm.
was at Clarendon. It didn't even, that thought of just winning a national championship at the college level did not even come into my mind until ABU started recruiting me. And obviously, I did my research, and I looked, and at the time they were coming off their third national championship in a row. And I was like, what? Dude, the school, that I've never even, heard of, like a national championship, like what are you talking about? And so then I started doing, looking more into the school and doing more research. Um, and that was, obviously a huge thing that was appealing to me, because then that thought gets put into my head, and I'm like, yeah, I want to do that for sure. And so again, that's probably like the biggest thing that I feel like is appealing, is that you can't get that everywhere. I mean, there's, again, going back to how many different levels of college basketball there are, how many different colleges and universities that there are that you can go and play collegiate sports at. I mean, I have no idea what that number is, but I know that it's a very, very small number out of whatever that huge number is, that you can go and legitimately have a chance to win a national championship and win a ring and be able to call yourself a national champion for the rest of your life. And that's an opportunity in the NCCAA. No matter if you're D1 or D2, you can go and you can expect to compete at that national level and compete for a national championship. And so that's something that I definitely think is unique about playing at this level. And then even, like new programs, have that opportunity. I mean, uh, for example, our rival school, actually, Champion Christian College in Arkansas, they're, I want to say, maybe 5 years old. And I think in the last 3 years, they've won 2 national championships. They beat us
Mm.
for both of those. But and they're a young program. It's like it's really cool to me. Like you can, like I said, I know I'm kind of sounding redundant, but it's just something that I feel like is, again, just so unique. I mean, there's plenty of schools I mean, even just like if we're just talking about Texas, how many colleges and universities that there are in Texas, but um, you know, who's competing for a national championship? ABU, Texas, of course.
Yeah.
Baylor. It's like, whenever you look at it that way, like, of course, those are high major, Division I schools. Of course, I mean, they would kill us if we ever, got the chance to play them. But if you're just talking about winning, a collegiate national championship, that is something that is very possible, in coming to ABU. So that's definitely, something that I always make sure to point out
So yeah,
whenever I'm talking to recruits, for
so
sure.
the players that are coming to you, then I imagine you're getting competitors. Then you're getting people who have the real desire to compete, to win, to be at a high level. Like I imagine uh,
Absolutely.
that must
Absolutely.
be a
Like,
competitive environment, then competitive
our
atmosphere.
practices are very, very competitive. I mean, like, every little thing is a competition, every little thing. But I love that, though, because that's how I was as a player, and that's how I still am. I'm still competitive. Like, I
Hmm.
get mad if, just like little things, if my brother finishes his food before me or something, and like, that's the kind of players that we tend to bring in. And it's awesome, just because that they want to win at everything in life. So that's, like, the effort that you get in those practices. So yeah, it's awesome.
That's exciting. I mean, just to be able to have that as like a pitch of like, do you want to win? Do you want to compete for a championship, right? To be considered
Yes.
a champion, and it's like you hope that those players that you're recruiting don't have to hesitate at all on that sort of answer. You're like, yeah, the players who jump on that are the ones that you want. That's awesome.
Right.
As a coach, what keeps you at the NCCAA? What keeps you going, and what keeps you excited about it? And as kind of a second part to that question, what do you think are the appeals potentially that may exist for a coach who might be looking at a NCCAA school that might make that type of school the right fit for them?
Me personally, I mean, I love being in a Christ-centered environment. I really
Hmm.
do. And especially with being at Arlington Baptist, we're a small school. I think right now our enrollment is around 260. So super small, for especially for a 4-year school in Texas, very small. But it kind of, along with that, and along with us, like, being, like I said, just a Christ-centered community, it brings, like, that small community and genuinely, like, family type of feel. And so, that's the feeling that I got whenever I was a student athlete there, and still the feeling that I have coaching here. So I think that really is, I mean, to me, that's the biggest benefit of being a coach at this level, is that you're in a Christ-like environment, or a Christ-centered environment around like-minded people. Most of the time, of course, it anyway. But
Yeah,
but still being there, and just being able to just to openly, like, talk about Jesus, and talk about the love of God. And even at the tournaments, obviously, like, it's just a different, standard that everybody is held to. But it's a great standard. It's about, that community, and it's about kindness. And obviously, that level of competition is obviously still there.
sure.
100%. Obviously, everybody wants to win. But then at the end of the games, we pray with the other team. And even just that, like, moment at the end of the game in itself, I mean, obviously, if you lose, you're probably going to be a little bit upset. But just to
Yeah,
know that, basketball just, brings us all together, is just something that's really great to be a part of. And like I said, it's definitely just kind of like a family environment, kind of, anywhere you go. And like I said, I really can only speak for Arlington Baptist. But that's a huge part of the reason why, obviously, like, I wanted to go to ABU, and why, I mean, I've been there ever since. I've been here since 2017. So obviously, I liked it enough to stay. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, I definitely think that that is really the biggest benefit. And so, for a coach looking at an NCCAA school, again, the same thing. If that's something that, means something to you, where, you're able to freely talk about Christ and just be in, a Christ centered environment, then I think it's awesome. Again, that's why I really enjoy coaching at this level and at ABU specifically, because it's like the best of both worlds for me. I love basketball and I love Jesus. So I get to put those two
Combine them
things.
both.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
get to
yeah.
put those two things together, and it's great. So yeah, for sure.
Uh, You mentioned about how the size of your school, relative, especially in Texas, that it's relatively small. And regardless, though, I can tell, and just by hearing your answers about the excitement of your program and the fact that you work to make your program an exciting program, a fun program. There's a lot of energy involved, even if it may not have the size or some of the resources that other institutions might have. So I wanted to ask you specifically about the things that you kind of work to do to make sure that your program still feels, big per se, even if structurally maybe it's not as big as other institutions.
Right. So one of the cool things, we have a certain number of like exhibition games that we play every year, and um a few times out of the year we actually go and get to play an NCAA Division I school. So for
Mm.
example, this year we went and played Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas, and it was streamed on ESPN Plus. And so,
Oh, cool.
you know, obviously I tell my girls this too, I expect to go in there and compete. And that's what we did. It was actually tied. The game was tied 23-23 in the second quarter, like halfway through the second quarter. And first of all, if we would have just taken one quarter from Texas State, I would have told everybody that we won. But and shortly after we tied the game at that, Texas State went on a little run. But anyway, the game was streamed on ESPN Plus, and that was enough for my girls. I think that that alone is what fired them up to play
Yeah.
so well that game, because they kept talking about them being on ESPN. Like it was something that was fun. Obviously they ended up beating us by a lot. I don't even remember what it was. I don't want to remember the number of how much they beat us by, but they got to go back and watch that game on ESPN Plus. The girls, whose family couldn't be at the game, got to watch, they got to watch their daughter or their niece, their granddaughter play on ESPN Plus.
How cool.
Um,
Yeah.
and they had like features for the players and stuff like that. I mean, it was cool for me too, so I literally I have ESPN Plus. I got to go back and watch the game on ESPN Plus. So that's one thing, that I think is pretty cool, is whenever we get that opportunity to go and compete against, a high level like that, like a Division I school. Um but something else that I did kind of touch on earlier about, what makes it exciting is, of course, you come to ABU, you're competing for a national championship, you're a part of March Madness. Like, um, you know, uh, I think it was my third year as an assistant. Um, we were at the national tournament. We had made it to the final four of the NCCAA Division II national tournament, and we were playing the number one seed. And I think that we were the four seed. We were either the four or the five. And so people didn't really expect us to win that game. They had already beaten us once earlier that season. And this game was literally like, I mean, the definition of March Madness basketball. We ended up winning by 20. One of my girls went off and hit like 8 3-pointers, had 30 points. And it was like, that's one of a highlight, definitely a huge highlight, that I'll cherish that memory forever, because um the girls were like, there was just no stopping that energy. It was truly like,
That's
March
awesome.
Madness energy. And so,
Yeah.
I remember going in the locker room and the girls spraying me with water and everybody's
That's
jumping around
cool.
and crazy. But stuff like that happens every year. And then, the NCCAA does a great job um at hosting those tournaments, because they have the awards, dinner and banquet and stuff. And they give out, the first, second, team All-Americans. They have a National Player of the Year. They have a dunk contest, they have a 3-point contest, they do a a skills contest. So, they still incorporate, all those things that, you do see on TV. And it's just so much fun. Like, again, I can speak, from a student athlete perspective as well, because I got to do that my junior and senior year. The national tournament was in Greenville, South Carolina, at Bob Jones University. And, I mean, my senior year, I got to be a part of the skills competition. It's just
How
something that
cool,
is really, really, really cool, really fun. You still get to travel. Like I said, I was in Greenville, South Carolina, beautiful, beautiful area. The last few years, the tournament was held in Joplin, Missouri. This year it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So, like a ton of traveling, and you get to experience those things. So it's really fun, to get to. I always tell the girls that it's the best part of the year. Like that tail end of the year, whenever things are getting real, and you're competing for a regional championship and then competing for a national championship. It is so much fun, and it is so exciting to really, really experience, true like March Madness in that way.
Yeah, because just in hearing it, it's the exact same pretty much type of experience that somebody would get at NCAA, like Division 1 or Division 2. Like you have all of these same, you know, tournament type things, the same sort of environment, the same excitement that's there. It's like
Right.
the equivalent version of it. And it's still like what's really cool to me is just the resources that are put into it, and how all the players are all into it, and it sounds like an experience that like everybody gets excited for, everybody gets hyped up for, and it becomes like this huge thing because everybody's like so excited to be a part of it.
Yes. Yeah. Every year, like around, this time before the tournament starts, the players are asking, like, is there gonna be a dunk contest? Is there gonna be a 3-point contest? Like that's like
Yeah.
that's the first thing that they look forward to, of course, other
Yeah.
than, actually winning. They're excited for, that fun stuff before.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. I think that's and even stuff like that, I'm thinking for like you were talking about, for like coaches and for players and for people who may be a little bit unsure about, what to expect at one of these an NCAA like organization, to be able to like know that like, hey, you come here and like these things that you may see more prominently on TV and everything, like we have all of that here. And it's like, oh, like this is exactly like what I wanted out of my like college experience, to have those same type of experiences and have those same type of events and things to participate in, and to know that like I'll be able to coach in that or be able to play in that. It's like, oh, this is like everything that I was hoping it was going to be, sort of thing. That's really cool.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So for you, I wanted to ask about um as we start to wrap up here, as you start to think about recruiting in general. That was another thing I kind of wanted to touch on, as you are kind of navigating this recruiting portal of all of these players that maybe are reaching out to you, and you're looking at all these players, and there's all this stuff out there. How do you like separate between like certain players? What goes into you as a coach at a collegiate level to be able to really decide between player A and player B? How do you kind of like split those hairs when there's just so many players and so much talent out there?
Right. And something that I always say, and
Hmm.
other coaches that I've worked with, just at various camps and stuff like that, that I've heard them say several times is, whenever we're watching film, or we're watching highlights, or we're watching a game, or watching a specific player, we can tell very, very quickly whether or not, that player is going to fit into our system, and specifically, like what we're looking for. I mean, just from like a regular highlight tape, I can probably tell within the first 30 seconds to maybe, a minute, if it even takes
Hmm.
that long, whether or not this player can be a good fit here. And again, a lot of that, with us specifically, and with my coaching style is, just like we play an up tempo game. We do have a big, emphasis on defense. Obviously putting the ball in the bucket is one thing. I mean, if you're looking to play college basketball, you should probably be able to score. But the defensive side and stuff like that is something that I really, really do try to focus on. And kind of how I navigate it is, obviously if I see a player and I identify them as somebody that can come here and be successful, somebody that I think can really help us out, I'll reach out. Obviously, if they hadn't reached out to me first, I'll reach out. And I like to get to know them as a person for sure. Again, just kind of going back to that, that higher standard that we hold our student athletes to at Arlington Baptist University, with us being a faith-based institution.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like to, talk to the player about more than basketball. I even, just like I like to go to their games. I like to talk to their family. I like to see, the kind of people that they, surround themselves with. Um, so that plays a factor for me, of course. Because if I, get a feeling about a player that, maybe they're going to come in and be a little bit of a turd, they might be really, really good, but, maybe this isn't, the greatest fit. So, I keep that in mind too, of course. But, and something that I like to do that I kind of, wish that, um, was more of a thing is like if a player is maybe not a fit, for us, um, I kind of like to just, be honest and say,
Sure.
like this is what I'm looking for. Um, I like to be honest. So that's me, personally. And again, just because you're not a fit for ABU does not mean that you are not going to be a fit for somebody else. Like I
Right,
didn't
right.
really believe that whole thing, whenever I was growing up about there being a level of college basketball for everybody, but it is like it's 100% true. Like experiencing that, like through college, like seeing it through playing in college and then now through coaching. If you want to play collegiate basketball, there is a place for you. Just because it, like I said, it might not be ABU, it could be another school in our region. It could be another school in the NCCAA. It could be a JUCO. It could be anywhere else, but I promise that there's, a level for you. So, yeah, that's kind of how I navigate through that.
No, I really like that a lot because I think that players can think that if they're a coach doesn't think, oh, like, I'm not a good fit for them. They said that I'm not a good fit for them. Like, oh, that means they personally don't like me, or,
Right.
there's something that like I'm not good enough to play, collegiately or whatever. But that's not always the case. That, as you mentioned, right? There's different fits and there's different, situations that would be better for certain players. And, I think that kind of goes back to something we talked about earlier about players reaching out and advocating for themselves and looking to get into contact with coaches and try and find, those programs that maybe are a good fit for them and really
Yes.
like do their research and do their homework on that because, for those players who have the ability to do it and have the desire to play at the college level for them to like take that ownership, I think, and really look and do that research into what am I looking for in my college experience and what type of play style or what type of environment am I looking to be in. I think that should be really encouraging for players to just think like, hey, like there can be an environment for you if you really go out and like really do your research and look into it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, this flew by, Coach. So to wrap up, there's a couple questions that I ask every guest. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this first one, which is thinking back on your coaching career. What is a moment from your coaching career that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
Well, for me, I mean, it happened recently. So,
Okay.
I touched a little bit, about just my journey into coaching. After I was done playing at ABU, I was an assistant for 3.5 years. Now I say half, because December of last season. So I get it, that it was December of 2022. I was actually made the interim head coach at ABU.
Okay.
So, I guess you could say that I was, somewhat, thrown into that position. Obviously, becoming the interim head coach in the middle of the season is not necessarily how I would have liked to step into the position. In a way, I almost felt like I didn't really earn it.
Hmm.
I kind of felt like it was just something that was kind of placed into my lap, and this is, what had to happen. Um, but if there's one thing that I can say that, I would take away from that is that the opportunity, wouldn't have, presented itself to you if you weren't ready. And again, God wouldn't have presented that opportunity to you if he didn't think that you were ready. And so I, you know, I'm sure that there were a lot of people doubting me. You know, at the time I was 25, I'm 26 now. I mean, I'm a young coach. And you know, I was an assistant for 3.5 years. I didn't have any head coaching experience, at least not at the college level, you know, prior to that time. And like I said, you know, I'm sure that there were a lot of people that, you know, maybe thought that it was going to be a disaster.
Mhm.
um, but we finished that season as, you know, the national runner up. You know, we got all the way to the national championship and ended up losing by 5. And the team that we lost to in the national championship was the only team that we lost to after I was made the interim.
Wow.
So, you know, it definitely, you know, I look back on that time and, you know, obviously I know that I still have a lot to learn. I'm very, very aware, you know, that I'm a young coach and there's, you know, there's still so much for me to learn and to experience. But you know, I guess that I would just say if an opportunity is presented to you and you know this is the way that God wants things to be, I mean, take it on full force and put, you know, your full effort into it, because that's, you know, what I did, because ultimately I knew that, you know, my goal was to be a head coach at some point. And like I said, the opportunity came in, I guess, an unconventional way, you know, not really a way that I expected. But you know, I feel like I just I wanted to do the most with it. And, you know, it ended up it ended up going well. I was,
Uh-huh.
you know, I was made the head coach after that season. And yeah, you know, I really do just believe that, you know, God wouldn't lay an opportunity in front of you if he didn't think that you were ready. So that's definitely you know, something that I learned from, and that, you know, something that I hope other people can take something away from as well.
I love that. Just that idea of just go for it, you know, like go for it, dive in head first sort of thing. And you know, the opportunity's there. And it's great that, you know, I know the circumstances maybe weren't necessarily the best that found you in that situation, but like it's how it worked out. And just how you're thriving now, and how I can tell how excited you are, not only that you did it, but that you're still there, right? You're still doing it, and
Right.
you're still after it after you know, kind of the craziness of that situation. No, that's awesome. I think that gives a lot of hope, hopefully, to, you know, coaches who are on the fence and like, oh, should I not? It's like, go for it, you know, go for it and
Yeah.
see how it goes and see what happens, and you'll know right away if it's a great situation or not. But it'll be a valuable learning experience, one way or the other. And so I'm glad it's been a positive one for you. To wrap up, Coach, I give every guest kind of what I call a 60-second soapbox. It's kind of your platform to get out kind of a final thought, a closing message, a closing idea. You can go over 60 seconds too, that's fine. But I wanted to kind of give you kind of this final platform to kind of get out a final message that you want to leave the listeners with, whatever basketball coaching message you want to go with. So, Coach, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
All right. Well, yeah, for starters, I think that I said it several times, you know, during this
Hmm.
time. But if you are, you know, in high school, if whatever age you are and you have aspirations to play collegiate basketball, there is absolutely an opportunity for you. And, you know, coaches too. I mean, out there, pass that message, you know, down to your kids. There are absolutely, you know, just a crazy number of different levels of college basketball, different colleges, different universities. And there definitely is a level for everybody. I mean, honestly, it might take some digging. You know, I'm sure that a lot of people probably hadn't heard of the NCCAA, you know,
Hmm.
but before us talking about it. But you know, that's a small, you know, a smaller collegiate level, and you can get all those opportunities playing at a national level, all, you know, all that kind of stuff. But you know, again, it just kind of goes to show that there really is a level for everybody. And you know, sometimes it just, you know, might take a little bit of digging to go and find that. Um, Recruits, it's also, again, never too late to find that level for yourself. You know, if you have to take things head on, again, if you truly have that aspiration to go out and play college basketball, you can take matters into your own hands. You can gather your film, you can make a field level account, you can make a Twitter account, you can get your name out there. So just, don't let anything hold you back. And then also, for other young coaches like myself, um, we're in this together. It's coaching is a very long career, and I know that I have a lot more to learn. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to continue to learn. I'm excited to continue to grow, and just for the experiences that come along with coaching, I'm excited for the future. Wherever it takes me. So, yeah. And again, uh, God would not lay an opportunity in front of you if he didn't think that you were ready. So, just remember that in any season, in a season of waiting, even in a season of success, in a season of, maybe, something didn't go the way that you wanted it to. Just trust your gut, trust God, and just keep pushing and keep working and keep doing the things that you love, for sure.
Awesome. What a great message to kind of leave with. And I really appreciate you coming on and speaking on, again, a topic, NCCAA that maybe a lot of our listeners didn't know about, but just the way that you presented it and the way that you talked about it, I think has really opened up some eyes and ears about that as being a legitimate possibility, and how exciting the level of play and the competitiveness and all the opportunities that exist there. So, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on, talking to us about that, and sharing your passion and sharing your excitement for the game and the game at that level. And I hope that things continue going great here as you continue on the recruiting trail, and that you get another great group of recruiting class coming in next year, and you get right after it this next year, and have a great March Madness a year from now, when I catch up with you. So this would be awesome. Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.